Well, good evening, everybody. Alan Slaughterzinski for the Brevard Sports Network, and let me start off by saying this: when we offer our sponsorship packages, one of the things that we offer to all of our sponsors is the opportunity to come in studio, or I can come to where you conduct your business, and let's talk about your business. I find every business fascinating, and since social media has blown up the way that it has advertising wise over the last 10 years, it is, in my opinion, the best platform with which to reach all demographics. And of course, here at Brevard Sports Network, we believe that our demographic is never ending simply because little Johnny or little Susie has an aunt, uncle, somewhere, relative, friend, somewhere in this country that is watching. So, age groups, it doesn't matter. Our demographics are ever expanding. So today, I am pleased. I don't know if I'm pleased or scared to have into the studio. I was praying he wouldn't bring a machine. I was like, my goodness, I hope he doesn't walk in here with a machine because he ain't hooking me up to it, right? But no, I'm kidding. Maybe. All right, so please help me welcome here into the Brevard Sports Network studio from Global Polygraph Analysis, Mr. Louis Nieto. Welcome, and I'm glad to have you here. Tell us about Global Polygraph Analysis.
Well, it's a small business that I opened up a few years back when I resigned from the federal government. I used to be a polygraph examiner for the CIA for several years. So we work with a lot of entities validating truth or seeking deception with the use of an instrument. And basically the polygraph exam. It's not old school like it was with the,
right.
with a with the ink and all that. But
right.
I was trained with those instruments back then. But now it's a little bit more, modern.
I would imagine
yeah.
with the technology and the way that it is, a lot of it can probably read. I mean, it could probably predict an individual's future. I mean, it's incredible what technology is able to do. So let me ask you this: this is a unique business to get into. Why? What was it about this particular field that attracted you?
I guess being able to be myself, my personality, being able to elicit information from individuals. The test is one thing, but working with individuals is a different thing. And I felt my skill level of working with individuals, being able to extract information from people was like valuable. And,
sure.
And I was just basically being myself.
Okay.
And, the more I got to knowing or I guess figuring out a person's pattern in a short period of time, that's where I'm able to detect that, even on the behavioral side of things.
Right.
So
now, like right now, I'm sitting here looking at you, going, "What the hell does he think about me?" I bet you get that a lot, though, don't you?
Yes. A lot of people think that we can find out just by talking to someone with one word or two words or anything like that. It's not. It doesn't work that way.
Right.
You really have to sit down and establish that pattern with an individual.
Absolutely. We are here with Mr. Louis Nieto of Global Polygraph Analysis, and the information for GPA is on the bottom of the screen. Looking at all of the outlets and companies and governments that you work with, I imagine that your job really gets pretty interesting. Kind of take us through, and I know you can't get into specifics with certain things, but kind of take us through a little bit your career with the federal government, if you would.
Sure. Well, my career started as a state police officer in Texas. I was there for a few years, for about 4 years, and I went to U.S. Customs and Border Protection, where I was a uniformed officer in Baltimore, Maryland. At BWI.
Nice.
And I noticed a lot of Camden Yards and the flag out there, so I think, I live right across the street from Camden Yards for about 4 years.
Place, yeah.
Then from there, I got recruited to work with the CIA, and at first they told me I was just going to be working in the security division. As I came in, they had first initially told me that I was going to be doing a little bit of background investigations to start off with. 2 weeks before I got on board, they asked me if I wanted to do polygraph, and I said sure. And by then I already had taken one to get in and so forth. And I said, yeah, this sounds fascinating. So that's how my career started with doing polygraphs. The training was in South Carolina, and it's a federal school. It's with the Department of Defense and a lot of entities in the federal government. Very intense, more so on the book work.
Right.
And then we, of course, we train. We do testing on basic training individuals that are going through basic training there at that location in Columbia, South Carolina.
So why would a company hire what would be the purpose of bringing in global polygraph analysis?
Well, there's a lot of clients that I have. My main client, I would say, is the federal district courts.
Right.
So I do individuals that are on probation for various reasons.
Right.
Also have a lot of lawyers call me to do their clients as well for for pretrial. Several entities with police and fire across the state of Florida.
Right.
So pre-employment basically, and believe it or not, fishing tournaments. Okay, I do polygraphs. I have a contract with Cabela's Big Bass Fishing Tournament. I just got back from Messina and from Wisconsin, La Crosse, Wisconsin, doing exams.
We have seen recently where people have been caught putting weights in fishes. How does this work? I'm curious about this.
Well, it's not only weights. So they're trying to get a little bit smarter. They're putting ice in these fish.
Oh wow!
And so it weighs the fish down, and they try to get And so when they take an exam, we can definitely figure out that there's some kind of deception.
So do you ask them? Have you placed anything into this fish?
It goes by rule. The tournament rules, basically.
I got you.
Yeah, so they have to sign off on each and every individual rule. So yeah, and we validate.
That is unbelievable.
Yeah.
And I would imagine too, from a sports side of this, you see internal investigations conducted. Every NFL team has its own security force, and I can only imagine now what they get in. And I imagine polygraphs are a big part of what these teams do.
Yep.
They have to be.
Yep.
Yeah, that is just fascinating. Bass fishing tournaments, that is crazy. We recently, and there you see on the screen a picture of exactly what I'm talking about with the weights. But man, that's nuts. It is amazing to me the extent that people will go, and I'm sure you've seen it all. The extent to which people will go to mislead or lie.
Of course. I mean, I've tested over 5,000 people in my career, in anywhere from 2 to 6 hour sessions.
Right.
So I mean, it varies. But one of the most recent clients, after of course getting out of the government, there's a big push or a big, I guess, clientele for infidelity cases.
Oh, I'm sure.
Relationships. So I get a lot of referrals from marriage counselors and things like that to do those type of exams.
We need to get you hooked up with Gregory Buttrick from Best Private Investigations here in Brevard County, and another one of our sponsors for sure. We're here with Mr. Louis Nieto here of Global Polygraph Analysis, GPA. And so we were talking a little bit before the show, and one of my favorite all-time shows that just simply didn't last long enough was Lie to Me.
Yep.
I can't remember the actor's name, but I'll look it up here while I'm asking this question. But it was a great show in which they were able to pick out deception through body language and talking and hand gestures and all of that. Is any of that part of some of the things you've done, you do, and is it true?
Well, yes. I mean, of course, when they have shows like that, it's based on some kind of truth.
Right.
And, I actually knew the individual that kind of helped produce that show that worked for the NSA, and I was trained by that individual to do basically the same.
Right.
So that's just a portion of reading body language. So that's not the say-on, be-all. They do micro expressions basically, but those are combined with other behavioral that develop the clusters that we look for.
Right.
That's definitely an indication of deception for an individual, and that's why I'm saying the pattern is important.
Right.
That you have to really pick up on those and be paying attention, looking at the person during that interview in order to see it.
Sounds like Tim Roth is the name of the actor. He played Cal Lightman, Dr. Cal Lightman. It seems like a process with which you begin at point A, and if point B becomes necessary, then you do that, and then you take it from there. How exactly does this work?
Well, yes, we have standard questions that we, during a pre-test interview that we kind of establish with the individual. We try to build rapport, and, we get into what the reason they're there for, and then see how their behavioral changes. And as we're going through questions, what body languages are, what are we reading from them? Each and every individual has their different patterns of behavior. So we
Sure.
just got to pick up on those. But the actual exam, the exams are fairly short, but it's the preparation that really takes a while.
What about the people that think that they can beat these things? You hear all the time, I'll put a tack in my shoe. I mean, the old standard thing. You can beat a polygraph. You can't. I've never believed that. Talk about that.
So, well, basically, when people say that, you're not necessarily beating the polygraph. You're beating the examiner. It's the polygraph is just as good as the examiner.
I got you.
The polygraph is a recording device, so it's basically recording every part of the physiology and that we connect, with the components that we use. And again, it's up to the examiner to analyze that, and and make sure that they're not being defeated.
Right.
And, so again, it's all based on the training and experience.
Let me ask you this. With today's technology and the way that things work, you always hear that polygraph results aren't admissible in a court of law. With today's technology, why is that still the case?
I think the main reason is because of the history of it, how it's progressed so much, and now there's the voice stress analysis and eye detect, even more so. Those are newer, but it's still not as accurate as a polygraph.
I got you.
Because polygraph has been around for over 60 years.
Right.
And the components really haven't changed, but the software has, the recording capability. There are certain jurisdictions, certain states, certain judges that would allow the polygraph, actually require the polygraph as a routine basis. But it just really depends, and not everybody's on board in every state for every law, right? So that's really how it goes with it. Yeah.
What I just find this to be utterly fascinating work. And when we first talked, I was like, oh, absolutely, global polygraph analysis is perfect, because I think that when you have somebody like myself that I love all my sponsors, but I don't know that I'm as intrigued about, and I love them all, but intrigued about what they do as opposed to this is incredible to me. I mean, this is just fascinating work. So I guess my question for you would be, have you ever gone in, and here come the hypotheticals, right? Mm-hmm. Have you ever gone into an examination where you've seen the evidence, you're going in to do a polygraph exam, and then the result was surprising one way or the other, where it just blew you away? Like you expected, this individual to fail a polygraph, or you expected an individual to pass a polygraph, and the opposite happened?
It happens all the time.
Really?
I mean, we, I don't show those on my side. I try not to show any kind of bias at all. But in my mind, that's what's going on. Is because sometimes you judge a person how they're dressed, or how they talk, or got a lot of health conditions that people have and things like that. And it's surprising. I've tested people that have Parkinson's, that are autistic, that are paraplegics. I mean, so the list goes on. But again, it's where we're going to put those components is how we're going to get the data from that individual. So, yeah, it's surprising to see a lot of those individuals that do well with the polygraph, regardless of what they're going through.
I went to take a polygraph for a pre-employment screening one time, and I was told I couldn't take the polygraph because my blood pressure was too high. So I found that to be I mean, I came back the next day, but I found that to be, I was like, well, really, what's that got to do with it? But I just found that to be fascinating. What should we know about global polygraph analysis? I don't know of a lot of companies that do this.
There's not.
I mean, tell me about the uniqueness of your company and why global polygraph analysis stands alone.
Well, I mean, like you're right. There's not very many of us that do exams across the state. Being it's a unique skill. So people that need one or that are looking for one will find me. Uh-huh. So a lot of the marketing, it's not as big as it could be, but I'm doing this alone. I really don't have personnel. I do my own bookkeeping. I do my own scheduling. Everything, all my training, everything I do it all myself.
I understand that.
And I have 4 offices in Florida.
Wow.
And I'm looking to expand into Texas now.
Okay.
I'm originally from Texas.
Okay. So is that where you would like to be back to one day?
Not necessarily. All my family's there. It's just that going back to Texas and seeing them, and I have a lot of friends that are retiring from a lot of law enforcement, and they're looking for things to do. And they see this, and like, hey, I would fit perfect into it.
Right.
All they need to go is through the training, and then, if I, under my company, have subcontract them to do the exams in that location.
I mean, it would seem to me that in today's world, with as many security risks as there are, not just here, but worldwide, that this is something that I think a lot of companies, you're going to see a lot of companies that really care about profit and, growth go to. I mean, I can't see, if I owned a major corporation or a company, I can't imagine I would operate that company without having this a part of the pre-employment process.
Right.
Right. I mean, I just, it makes no sense to me, because if you can eliminate that at the very beginning, save yourself what could potentially be an unbelievable, I mean, putting it lightly would say to be a headache, but if you can eliminate that headache at the start, why not?
Exactly. Yeah, and that's what it's used for. And on the security side of things, unfortunately, because of EPA, which is the labor law,
right,
that doesn't require, you can't basically take one, but unless it's security related.
So a regular company just can't issue these?
Only for investigations. So if somebody's stealing from the company, I can test them. But for pre-employment, only if they are.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. So
that's wild.
Yeah, and it's tough because, again, like you're right, you just never know who you're going to get. Yeah.
I mean, you're really taking a chance these days. I mean, unbelievable.
Yeah.
All right, so I had an opportunity to meet your lovely wife. Tell us about your family and what you like to do when you're not detecting lies.
Well, I love sports.
Right.
So, every time I can, I'll watch sports. And, I'm fairly new to the community. I live in Vieira.
Okay.
And so, I just been spending time with my wife and kids and just, getting to know the area. It's growth, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Favorite teams?
On the professional side?
Sure.
For football, are the Ravens.
Right.
Believe it or not. My son was born in Baltimore.
Okay.
So, and baseball, I would have to go with the Nats.
Okay.
Okay.
Were you there when they were, when
I was actually living in Philadelphia when Philadelphia had their stint, those years. And so, baseball side, I'm not really too loyal on anybody. I grew up in Texas. My team were the Oilers.
Right.
Once they left, I really didn't have a team.
Fair enough.
Till I moved to Baltimore, and I lived right across the street from Camden Yards, and became a Ravens fan when Ray Lewis was there. And,
beautiful, wasn't it?
Wonderful years.
Yeah,
wonderful
it was.
years. But yeah, those and college. I mean, I like all college games. I mean, I try to go to Florida State games, and so yeah. I mean, I'm not really loyal to any
one team. You're just out there.
No, I played Division II ball, so I was in Texas.
What'd you play?
Middle linebacker.
Did you? I can see it. I can see it. I definitely see it. What as we get set to wrap up here, global polygraph analysis. If you could leave us with just one message about it and one necessity that everybody needs to know, what would it be?
Just validating truth. I mean, if a person is experiencing, I get a lot of entities or a lot of families reach out to want to validate truth and to, kind of draw that line. That's what we're here for, is to make sure that, it's something that the family can be able to do and move forward with any situation.
Now, I want to ask you talked about the infidelity part of that. So, and, it would be wonderful if we lived in a world where things like this weren't necessary, but we don't. So my question is, like, if this is crazy, but I mean, do you ever have couples that call up and say, hey, we're going to put each other to a polygraph? Do you ever have that happen?
All the time.
Are you serious?
I get anywhere from 10 to 15 cases a month.
Really?
Yeah.
So there's the information on the bottom of the screen right there. If you think that, I hate to say it, but if you think that this, for Mr. Nieto's sake, I like to say it. For your sake, if you need this, definitely give Global Polygraph Analysis a call. It's eye-opening. It really
Yes.
is eye-opening
Yep.
and necessary.
Yep.
And I'm glad that you've chosen Brevard Sports Network because we got a lot of great stuff coming up, and that banner looks great on the bottom of that screen.
I appreciate
so,
that.
yeah,
I
no
appreciate
problem. Thank you so much for
you.
coming in and telling us so much more about this great and necessary company. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, absolutely. Any of my other sponsors out there, you want to come sit in the chair where Lewis is? Come on in. You got my number. We'd love to have you to talk about your company. For Lewis and Global Polygraph Analysis, I'm Alan Slaughter-Zinsky for the Brevard Sports Network. Have a great night, everybody.